Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, and I'm going to be talking about The Haunting of Hill House, Season 1, Episode 9. It's called Screaming Meemies, so full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, coming into this one, I was curious because I'd sort of seen that there was a divisive reaction to the last couple of episodes and how it ends. Now, I don't know how it ends, of course, we'll get to that next time in Episode 10, but I will say that I did not dislike this episode. I thought it worked pretty well for the most part. I think the episode is Olivia's. It's Olivia. There's a lot of overlap with previous episodes where it's like, okay, so this is what happened with her right before that scene, or what she saw in the mirror that made her smash it, and so on. And it brings in some of these more echoes of the future, kind of coming in through the ghost and the fear of where lives might lead. In fact, my favourite scene from the trailer is actually in this episode, and I'd forgotten about it actually because it's we're so late into the show. I'd forgotten about this scene from the trailer, but it was very good. And it's the scene where, not really Luke and Nelly, but like she's with Luke and Nelly, and it's after she's already had the first scene with Poppy. Poppy, of course, the spirit who's kind of manipulating her and preying upon her fears as a mother. But she has this scene with the two kids where they basically sit up and say, because Poppy keeps saying, it keeps describing real life as if it's a dream. This horrible dark dream where all these bad things will happen that ends in a silver table and so on. And of course, Olivia has that scene where she walks into the room and she's in the morgue. She's in the room with dead Nell, who gets up and tries to speak and has to unclip the wires that are holding her mouth shut to say mummy. And Luke's lying with an overdosed on the floor. And it's this manipulation, which does also make me kind of retroactively think, oh, so when Nell saw Luke overdosed, that was probably just a similar thing where it was manipulation. Perhaps because she was even closer to the house by that point. She was in the same town. But we have, we have Poppy describing the real life, all the bad things that happen as a dream and how you can wake them up. And immediately as soon as she said that, I was thinking, oh my god, she's trying to convince her to kill her kids, so the house can feed on them, because sure, she can feed on them. In fact, at one point she said something along the lines of, oh, you're a peach, William's going to love you. William, of course, been the one that she's with, she met in the mental institute, which actually, not that this correlates completely, but it did get me thinking about how Luke met someone at a rehab centre. I was just trying to think of how that could kind of tie thematically to the fact that Poppy and William Hill met at an institute. I don't know. It was something I was thinking about as this scene was going on. But and of course there's some neat touches in here where she's like the old version of herself for one shot. She takes them into the room with the kids and talks about, you would wake them up from a dream if it was so bad and they were out in the dark and blah 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 blah. And it's later on, it's this scene with the kids that I really love, where Nelly sits up in the bed and says, Mum, what if I have a bad dream? And she's like, what, you like the bent neck lady? And she's like, no, worse than that. What if you set me out into the dark, into the night? Sorry, the other way around. Into the night, in the dark, right? That's how she ends part of it. But she says, what if you set me out there and it was so scary and my heart was broken that I couldn't feel anything until I eventually just had to die. And she's basically describing her life and eventually having to commit suicide. And then Luke sits up and says, and what if I'm so scared of what's out there in the dark that I put poison in my blood until my blood turns to poison, until I eventually die with a needle in my arm. And I really like this scene from the trailer because it was such a bizarre scene, but it was like a really interesting scene in a scary way, where it is the horror of your children, having terrible lives, right? And to have the children sit up and say, hey, Mum, I'm kind of worried that I'm going to become a heroin addict when I grow up. Not in those words, but to essentially have that scene and have Olivia have to process this information. And of course it's the manipulation. It's playing on her to think that she has to wake them up, and waking them up, in this case, meaning death. I was even thinking a little bit of Inception, because that's how you escape the dream in Inception, is you kill yourself to wake up. But I'm getting the sense that the family feed on people in this house, or the house feeds on people, and it maybe uses the spirits of who have been there before to sort of initiate that, or maybe it's the family themselves. But that was kind of what I was getting from a lot of this, and I thought it was nice and drawn out, and it worked really well for me because it preyed upon the emotions, and it preyed upon her motherhood. And I thought it was neat that it preyed upon the two youngest, because we had the opening scene set up kind of beautifully, where she wakes up and she's with both Luke and Nelly, Luke and Nelly, and she's sitting there, And Hugh's like, "Oh, should I take one?" She's like, "No, I want to savor this. If I could just freeze time and have them be like this forever, I would." And that kind of, that's essentially what the ghost preys upon, is the idea that if you kill them now, and you die as well, of course, you'll be here forever in this state. You'll be here forever like that, and is very, very, like I say, preying on her motherly fears and instincts. But no, and that's why she smashes the mirror, because she sees old Nellie and Luke, the dead versions of them, crying for help essentially in the mirror, and that's why she smashes it. And I like that, but I like that that's what she was being tormented with, and it makes the whole show feel very full circle, because not only is all the stuff in present day influenced from the stuff of the past, the idea that the stuff with Olivia in the past is influenced by where things actually go in the future to some extent. Whether or not there's actually when she walks into that morgue and she sees what she sees, like, is she actually seeing how things are going to go? Or, is there actually like an echo from the future kind of informing this in some way? Or is it just a general fear? But we can't, if it is just a general fear that they're preying upon, then we have to ask the question, like, it's a bit of a coincidence then that the actual real world has turned out like this, right? This is exactly how it's went, which is maybe why there is some kind of, time doesn't act the same way for the people on the other side. Or then again, they're trying very hard to accomplish something here, so maybe that's not entirely true either. But because if they know that they're going to get away and grow up like this, then why are they trying so hard? Because if that makes sense, right? Because they know they're going to get away. Anyway, confusing matters. But and of course, the other thing here we have to talk about is Abigail. We have to talk about who she might be, and the fact that she is seemingly killed by Olivia in this episode. Because Olivia, after the incident with the mirror, Hugh gets very concerned, and of course there's the screwdriver scene as well earlier on that came after the first big Poppy dream, and she agrees to go to her sister's early, but she doesn't actually go. She just goes to the motel, and she sneaks back in at night. And the camera kept focusing on that rat poison that Hugh bought for the walls, and she's making tea, and she's like, tea party. And this was a neat thing as well, is that we've been hearing Nellie ask for a tea party, and we've been hearing references to a tea party for a lot of the season. This felt like, finally it's a tea party. We're getting to the tea party. It's not a thought I have often, but I was thinking, yeah, we're getting to the tea party, damn it. So. But Abigail's there, because Luke asked if she could stay over, and everyone just kind of said yes, thinking she wasn't real. And sure enough, here she is. Here's Abigail. And they go up to the red room. They go in, and, everyone's blown in their tea because it's too warm, but Abigail takes a big swig. And obviously when Hugh runs in, Abigail's already dying. And he's seen the rat poison by this point, because Shirley's come in and woke him up, because she has that one interaction with her mother. And again, it's just like all the other kids have grown old and don't need her anymore. They're at that awkward age, but now, so she wants to try and contain the youngest. That's what the spirits are preying on. So who is Abigail? And I'm sure there'll probably going to be more of an accurate thing next episode, because obviously there's talk in this episode from Mrs. Dudley about having a child, and we know that their first child was stillborn. But they keep mentioning that they've got a child and they're homeschooled and they're not allowed in the house. And then later on we hear from Luke that Abigail isn't technically allowed to come here, but she's sneaky. she's sneaky about it. And I'm like, okay, well, the obvious explanation here is that this is the Dudley's kid. But when she dies, and Olivia goes back in the room and she sees ghost Olivia, and she's taken away with this woman. It got me thinking, and I was like, one, is it just too obvious that this is the Dudley's kid? And then secondly, I was thinking, we've not really mentioned that they have an actual kid who's around right now until this episode. And my guess right now is that this is actually the child of the Hill family that the Dudleys adopted after everyone else had died. There was a kid left over that they adopted because they'd lost their child and they wanted to take care of her. And that's why this ghost that takes her away is maybe a kinder presence, perhaps, is because it's taken her daughter away or something. I don't know. I'm maybe reaching a little bit here to a point, but I also need to talk about Mrs. Dudley, because Mrs. Dudley has a couple of really interesting scenes in this one, where she speaks to Olivia. One about the hailstorm, which, by the way, Olivia implies that she slept through the storm, and everything that happened in episode 6 in the flashbacks was a dream. And I'm not sure if I should believe her or not. I mean, given that Nellie disappeared, it would maybe stand to reason to a point. Or she's just remembering it as a dream, and it wasn't a dream, it was real. You know, we're playing with the idea of what is dream and what is reality a little bit here, because that's kind of how Poppy's manipulating her later in the episode. So I could see that being a thing. And they talk about the hail, and she compares it to, to the Bible and so on. And the interesting scene, though, is later on when she's had a few of these really scary moments so far. Poppy's already manipulating her. And it's when Mrs. Dudley's taking the paint up to Stephen for the dresser. She sits down with her, and what was interesting to me is this scene. The first half of this scene is basically Mrs. Dudley almost pushing Olivia in the same direction as the ghosts, where she says to her, no, if you have a concern, you hold on to that concern and you protect them no matter what, even if they hate you for it, even if he hates you for it, you protect him. And it almost sounded like she was on the side of the damn ghosts, and it was making me wonder if there was going to be some sort of swerve about who Mrs. Dudley really is. But then everything she said after that about how, we don't let our daughter come here after dark, or not daughter, she said child. That's really important here, because just in case there's a swerve and she's got like a son or something like that. She said child, not daughter. But didn't let a child come here. She wasn't even going to come to the house and help with the restoration. It wasn't until her husband mentioned it was a family with children that she felt compelled to try and help, that she wanted to intervene and try, and be of assistance, which kind of swerved me back to her just being Mrs. Dudley. And it's just almost a coincidence that she's kind of playing into the fears that the ghosts are playing into. And it kind of makes sense in a weird way, because she lost a child and she is also a mother, and this is what the house seems to be, manipulating, right? So it makes sense that she would maybe have this attitude, even if that's exactly what the ghosts want to play Olivia into. So here's a really sad thing, is that obviously we have the scenes of her looking around for everyone. Poppy's with her as Hugh's trying to take Stephen out, and we see that Olivia's on the other side of the door, but Poppy's there too. And what was interesting here is that the older ghost Hazel says that Poppy's a liar. And it was almost like for a second she was actually trying to help, but didn't really achieve it. And I don't know if this was just more manipulation, if this was more... but I think what I noticed here is that this distraction, Hazel calling her in and saying that Poppy's a liar, was the distraction that lets Hugh take Stephen out. It's the distraction that lets them get away. So it makes me wonder if it is just a specific set of spirits, that Poppy's maybe the evil center that manipulate, or Poppy and William are the evil center of the spirits, and Hazel actually gave them the opening to get out. She actually tried to help, which would then also line up with the idea that there's a nice ghost who takes Abigail, that it's not just all evil ghosts, but there's the core family who are awful and evil, perhaps. Also worth mentioning that I don't know if the one with the cane, the ghost with the cane that haunts Luke specifically, I don't know if that's supposed to be William. I don't know if it is, but what I thought was interesting is that's the one that haunts William, and I was thinking if that was the kid, Poppy's kid, who lost the ability to walk, because she mentioned that, and that he bangs. So I was thinking that was her kid. And again, if we're using her boy and girl as the connections thematically to Nellie and Luke, it makes sense that he's the one that torments him. But then the bent neck lady's actually Nellie herself, so that doesn't add up too much really in the grand scheme of things. But I was thinking of all these thematic links and connections as I was watching. But no, I think that's interesting. I think Hazel could still just be playing her, but I do think it's notable that it's her distracting Olivia for that brief 30 seconds that gives Hugh a chance to get out with Stephen and save the kids, at least for the time being. So so it's food for thought. But yeah, and of course she kind of snaps out of it for a little bit, where she realizes that not realizes she's been manipulated, but she tells it to shut up and goes back into the red room. And of course she kind of realizes the weight of what she's done here, that Abigail's dead. That she's killed a child, but then Poppy keeps manipulating, She wants it to end. This is horrible. And now that the kids are gone, it's almost like Poppy just kind of concedes, okay, the kids are gone for now, I'll just feed on you, almost, right? Just end it, you know, dear. No more screaming Meemies. Just, you know, wake up and your kids will be lying there in bed. And this is, you know, when she's on the edge of the staircase. But what I think is really important here for her character, and what makes this possibly even sadder than it actually is that she, you know, Poppy is in the background creeping up to her to push her off the banister. But she doesn't actually get to do it. Her hand goes out to push her, and Olivia just drops herself. Olivia makes the choice without being, you know, that final push. She makes the choice to die. And that kind of makes it sadder. The ghost had already won. They'd already, like, you know, made her that far gone that she was already willing to kill herself. And she didn't need the final push. Where notably Nellie did need the push. You know, the ghost did push her. Which was Olivia in that case, if it's really Olivia, which, you know, is debatable. It's debatable. So, and my cats are chasing each other around in the background. He's looking very shifty back there. So, no, that was a really sad ending, especially that detail, I thought. And then, of course, the final scene is the flashback to when they first arrive at the house. And, yeah, the dialogue's a bit on the nose, as she says, oh, go on without me. And he's like, oh, how could we? I was like, okay, a little bit on the nose, but it's a sad little moment and kind of poignant and works. It's not as effective as a sad moment at the end of episode 6, I thought, but it still was effective. It worked. So no, and that was the episode. It was really focused in this case because it was always Olivia. Everything was with Olivia. Didn't really deviate from that beyond, you know, a couple of scenes of Shirley getting her dad to, you know, go and help and, you know, what's going on here. And no, I liked it. I really don't have much to complain. I think the reason why it works for me, because I'm not typically, when ghost movies start to have the ghost speaking a lot and we get a lot of this kind of thing, it's typically when I tune out. But what worked for me in this is because we spent time with these characters and because we understand the characters and we have this sad kind of tragedy element to the whole show. It's the emotion that works for me. It's the emotion of realising that Olivia's being manipulated into killing her children, when that's the last thing she would ever want to actually do. It's the emotion of realising she's having her own fears of her children having bad lives turned against her, and that she thinks she's protecting them, and she's not. That perversion is what makes it work for me, I think. And, you know, the way the sad piano theme comes in as she's starting to listen to Poppy, when she's saying, of course I'd protect them, when she's manipulating her. That, for me, worked. And I think that's what makes the episode work, and what makes Olivia's story work, is that tragedy. And the tragedy that, of course, like I say, she didn't actually need to be pushed at the end. She fell by her own free will. Now, that's not to say that she still wasn't murdered. She was still manipulated up until that point. But the fact that she was willing to take the plunge without the push is just an extra... It's an extra kick. It's an extra kick while we're down, I guess, is what I'll say. Yeah, and the only stuff we see of the adults is the visions of Luke and Nellie being dead. That is all we see of them at all this episode. And yeah, it's just really effective in that sense. So obviously next episode we're going to be in the house in present day. I have to imagine that's the bulk of the episode next time. Outside of maybe some more of what happened when Hugh came back. Right, you know, when he came back after he dropped off the kids, what did he do when he came back to the house? What was that 3 hours, or whatever it was? That's the interesting stuff here, I think. There's still to be revealed, and maybe a confirmation of who Abigail actually is. But curious. But I like a lot of this show, it works for me because the character drama is there to back up what's going on. I think a problem I have with a lot of supernatural movies is that they rely on the supernatural elements to sort of, you know, as the razzle-dazzle of it all. And, well, it can be effective if it's filmed really well and if it's paced really well. And this is to a large extent. Like, this is a very well-crafted show. But often, if it's just the razzle-dazzle, I can lose interest, and it doesn't work for me if I don't care about the characters. And the characters here I care about the tragedy of the family, and the grief that they've been going through this whole time. And the fact that this is what the spirits seem to prey upon is the trauma, is the fears, it's manipulating people. Which is where the allegories of it representing mental illness, or the allegories of it of it representing almost a disease, can kind of come into play and kind of work. And because of that, it feels like the show, like the scares are there to tell the family the story, not the other way around, if that makes sense. And because of that, when it's the realization of what Olivia's about to do, it's not the fact there's a ghost talking to her this much. Like, I kind of stop being creeped out by ghosts when they start being too talky. It's just something that I don't feel that much as that creepy for the most part. But it's the horror of realizing what she's been convinced to do that makes the scenes work. And that's the horror of the scene. That is the horror of the episode. So there you go. That's episode 9. We have the finale, and we're almost done. So that's episode 9. Let me know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. You can do that for as little as $1 per month, and we appreciate it loads if you do that, or if you even just go over and have a look and see what's on offer. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?